These are the richest families that own Palm Beach, and they only get crazier as we move. We're talking about a man who bought the entire resort next to his newly bought house so nobody could bother him. A hedge fund billionaire who spent $450 million just assembling the land before a single wall went up, and a $5 million wedding that ended in a lawsuit and somehow got even worse from there. Let's get into these jaw-dropping stories. Number 8. The Peltz family. Nelson Peltz dropped out of the Wharton School in 1963 to drive delivery trucks. Not as a humbling life lesson, not as a gap year. He literally left one of the most prestigious business schools in America to haul groceries for his family's wholesale food operation, and then spent the next 6 decades turning that decision into a billion-dollar activist investment empire. Today, Peltz runs Trian Fund Management, which oversees roughly $8.5 billion in assets and has made a career out of buying large stakes in underperforming corporations and then making their executives deeply uncomfortable until things improve. He famously acquired Snapple, ran aggressive campaigns at companies like Procter & Gamble and Disney, and built a net worth somewhere between $1.5 and $1.7 billion along the way. His Palm Beach home is called Montserrat. It sits at 545 and 548 North County Road, spans roughly 7 acres, measures 44,000 square feet, has 608 feet of private Atlantic beachfront, 15-foot ceilings, antique Parquet de Versailles flooring, and automated glass walls that rise from the basement on command to shield the interiors from ocean salt spray. It is, by any reasonable measure, one of the most spectacular private residences in America. He paid $103 million for it in 2015. He also has a 27-bedroom estate in Bedford, New York, with a private lake, a professional indoor hockey rink, and a flock of imported albino peacocks roaming the grounds. The peacocks are white. They were imported. This is a detail Nelson Peltz chose. Now, the wedding. In April 2022, Peltz's daughter Nicola, actress, socialite, person with very specific music preferences, married Brooklyn Beckham, son of David and Victoria Beckham, in a multi-day ceremony at Montserrat. The event cost somewhere between $3 million and $5 million. It should have been a flawless, once-in-a-lifetime celebration. Instead, it became one of the most entertaining billionaire public meltdowns in recent memory. Peltz sued the replacement wedding planners, a firm called Plan Design Events, demanding the return of a $159,000 deposit over what he described as gross incompetence. The planners fired back with a 188-page countersuit calling him a billionaire bully, and, crucially, leaked hundreds of private text messages from the planning group chat. What those texts revealed was spectacular. Nicola had rejected all traditional wedding music in favor of, and this is a direct quote from the filings, early 2000s hip-hop. She demanded a custom water aisle and a matching water dance floor. She described the planning process at one point as a murder scene. Nelson Peltz threatened to cancel the entire wedding. His wife, former fashion model Claudia Hefner, reportedly begged him not to, warning that a cancellation would destroy Nicola's career. A $5 million wedding, a 188-page lawsuit, a leaked group chat, albino peacocks on a separate property in New York. Nelson Peltz is 81 years old and still filing lawsuits about his daughter's wedding, DJ preferences. The man has never once done anything halfway. Number 7. The Lauder family. The Lauder dynasty started with Estee Lauder, mixing face cream in her kitchen in Queens, New York, and grew into one of the most powerful cosmetics empires on Earth. The family has been buying, building, and strategically obliterating prime Palm Beach real estate for decades. And the current generation has taken that strategy to a level that is honestly hard to categorize as anything other than performance art. The family's history on the island goes back to 1964, when founders Estee and Joe Lauder first purchased a beachfront home on Ocean Boulevard. That property was eventually passed down through the family. Today, the Lauder name is most visibly represented by William P. Lauder, whose net worth sits around $1.8 billion, and whose approach to Palm Beach real estate can best be described as acquire, sometimes demolish, and always profit. In 2023, William Lauder acquired the oceanfront compound of the late Rush Limbaugh at 1495 North Ocean Boulevard for $155 million in an off-market deal. That property alone would be enough to establish anyone's credentials in this market. But Lauder had already been busy on a separate parcel. A Delaware entity linked to him had purchased a newly built 36,000-square-foot French chateau at 1071 North Ocean Boulevard for $110 million. The home had a sweeping staircase, a private cinema, dual seaside balconies, and by any standard was a finished, spectacular residence. Lauder bought it and immediately scheduled it for demolition. He then merged that cleared lot with an adjacent 1.8-acre vacant parcel at 1063 North Ocean Boulevard, which he had acquired for $25.4 million after demolishing the former home of philanthropists Morton and Barbara Mandel, and created one clean, consolidated 2.25-acre blank canvas of prime Atlantic beachfront. He listed it for $200 million. Celebrity broker Ryan Serhant closed it in a phone deal at $178 million. Let's be precise about what happened here. William Lauder bought a finished $110 million mansion, knocked it down, and the empty lot sold for $178 million. The destruction added roughly $68 million in value. In Palm Beach, sometimes the most expensive thing you can do to a property is remove the building. Beyond the real estate moves, the Lauder family maintains an elite presence in Manhattan. William owns a 5,500-square-foot Central Park duplex and a separate Central Park residence. And the broader family continues to shape Palm Beach's cultural and philanthropic landscape in ways that go well beyond their net worth. They have been operating at this level since the 1960s. That's not momentum. That's a dynasty with a long memory and a very clear understanding of where value lives. Number 6. The Charles B. Johnson family. Charles B. Johnson is the kind of billionaire who has been quietly running one of the most powerful investment firms in America for decades, without most people outside of finance knowing his name. That's not an accident. That's a preference. Johnson served as the longtime chairman of Franklin Resources, better known as Franklin Templeton Investments, a multinational asset management giant originally founded by his father in 1947. Under Johnson's leadership, the firm became a genuinely global operation, managing hundreds of billions in client assets and employing over 1,100 people in Florida alone. His personal net worth is estimated at $5.7 billion. He relocated to Palm Beach later in life, having spent most of his career in California, and his lifestyle here reflects the kind of patrician restraint that old money considers a virtue. No super yachts in the public record, no leaked group chats, no 188-page lawsuits. What he does have is a $250 million donation to Yale University made in 2013, which funded the construction of 2 new residential colleges on campus, one of the largest single gifts in Ivy League history. Johnson is a Yale alumnus and apparently felt his alma mater needed new housing. At $250 million, he built enough of it to shape the university's physical footprint for a generation. He is also the largest individual shareholder of the San Francisco Giants. In the early 1990s, when the Giants were on the verge of relocating to Tampa Bay, Johnson stepped in and assembled an ownership group to block the move, essentially saving Major League Baseball's presence in San Francisco from a Palm Beach estate while simultaneously running a global investment firm. That's the kind of sentence that takes a second read. $5.7 billion. Zero drama. In Palm Beach, that almost makes him an outlier. Number 5. The Stephen Ross family. Most of the families on this list came to Palm Beach to live. Stephen Ross came to rebuild it. Ross is the founder of Related Companies, one of the largest and most active real estate development firms in the United States. His net worth sits at $10.1 billion. He owns the Miami Dolphins. He chairs the Formula One Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix. He brought the Miami Open to Hard Rock Stadium. He is an investor in Equinox, Equinox Hotels, and SoulCycle. He has signed the Giving Pledge, committing more than half of his fortune to global causes. The man is running somewhere between 5 and 8 businesses simultaneously and appears to find this energizing rather than exhausting. But in Palm Beach County, the story that matters most is what he's doing to West Palm Beach. Ross's development arm, Related Ross, is currently deploying nearly $10 billion into commercial and residential projects across the county. And the anchor of that push is his effort to turn downtown West Palm Beach into what he openly calls Wall Street South. Goldman Sachs is there. Wells Fargo is there. J.P. Morgan Chase is there. Ross built the towers, sold the vision, and the institutions followed. On the residential side, his firm is constructing South Flagler House at 1355 South Flagler Drive, an ultra-luxury development designed by Robert A. M. Stern Architects, backed by a $600 million construction loan positioned directly across the water from Mar-a-Lago. And then there's the South Bridge play, which is worth understanding because it shows exactly how Ross operates. In early 2026, Related Ross acquired 27 units at the aging 1981 Southbridge condo at 3915 South Flagler Drive for $25.4 million, bringing his total stake in the building to $37.3 million and achieving 71% controlling interest. To avoid tipping off sellers about an institutional buyer assembling a majority position, which would have sent asking prices through the roof, Ross used multiple LLCs and a private investor named Joey Colombo to quietly gather the initial units before selling them in bulk to Ross. Once he had control, the plan became clear: demolish the 3-story building and replace it with an 18-story luxury tower on one of the most premium waterfront sites in the county. Ross doesn't buy real estate. He buys potential, restructures the ownership, changes the zoning story, and builds something that wasn't there before. Palm Beach County's skyline, a decade from now, will be partly a product of this man's imagination. Number 4. The Stephen Schwarzman family. If Stephen Ross is the builder, Stephen Schwarzman is the institution. Schwarzman co-founded Blackstone Group, which is today one of the largest alternative asset management firms on the planet. His net worth is $38.3 billion. Blackstone manages assets across private equity, real estate, credit, and hedge fund strategies at a scale that genuinely shapes global capital flows. When Blackstone moves, property markets respond. When Schwarzman speaks at a conference, central bankers listen. His Palm Beach compound sits on South Ocean Boulevard, a heavily secured oceanfront estate on Billionaires Row used as a seasonal retreat from his primary base in New York. The property is exactly as discreet and fortified as you would expect from a man who controls this much capital and has no interest in being photographed coming and going. What makes Schwarzman uniquely interesting in the Palm Beach context is less the estate itself and more the gravitational effect his presence creates. When one of the most powerful financial figures on Earth chooses to spend his winters somewhere, that somewhere develops a reputation that compounds year over year. His residency on the island has been a meaningful signal to the entire private equity and hedge fund world that Palm Beach is not just a retirement destination for inherited wealth. It is a place where active institutional power gathers, strategizes, and networks. That signal has helped reshape the island's economic identity more than any single real estate transaction. His philanthropy operates at a scale that challenges the concept of what a donation can accomplish. Humanities centers, artificial intelligence research labs, new computing facilities at MIT, Oxford, and Yale. The kind of gifts that don't put your name on a wing, they restructure entire academic disciplines. He is a major political fundraiser, a fixture in conversations about American economic policy, and one of the few private citizens who can convene heads of state and corporate leaders in the same room without needing a title to justify the invitation. $38 billion, a fortified compound behind tall hedges, and a Rolodex that includes most of the people who run the global economy. That is what Billionaires Row actually looks like from the inside. Number 3. The Ken Griffin family. Ken Griffin started trading convertible bonds from his Harvard dorm room using a satellite dish and a fax machine he had installed himself. That detail matters because it tells you something essential about how his mind works. The obsessive infrastructure building, the systematic extraction of every possible edge from whatever environment he inhabits. He dropped out of Harvard, founded Citadel in 1990, and built it into one of the most powerful hedge funds on Earth. His net worth is $49.8 billion. Citadel Securities, his market-making arm, processes roughly 25% of all U.S. equity volume on any given trading day. Griffin is not peripheral to the financial system. He is part of its plumbing. In Palm Beach, he has been executing what is almost certainly the most expensive private real estate assembly project in recorded history. Over the past 13 years, he has spent over $450 to $500 million acquiring approximately 27 contiguous acres of prime beachfront along Blossom Way and South Ocean Boulevard. Several historic mansions have been demolished. Parcels were assembled one by one, often through intermediaries designed to prevent sellers from realizing who was buying and repricing accordingly. On that land, Griffin is constructing a 50,000 square foot compound designed by the Seattle architecture firm Olson Kundig. Construction costs are estimated between $150 million and $400 million. When complete, the estate is projected to be worth approximately $1 billion, the second most expensive private home on Earth, behind only Mukesh Ambani's Antilia Tower in Mumbai. It will first be occupied by Griffin's mother, Catherine Gratz Griffin, before eventually serving as his own retirement compound. He is spending $1 billion building a home, and the first resident will be his mom. Griffin is one of the most aggressive art collectors alive. He paid a combined $500 million to David Geffen for 2 paintings, a Jackson Pollock and a Willem de Kooning, in a single transaction. In 2025, he acquired a $45 million duplex at 740 Park Avenue from Julia Koch, whose family holds the number 2 spot on this very list. The public got its most unfiltered look at Griffin's financial world during his 2014 to 2015 divorce from Anne Diaz Griffin. The court filings were extraordinary. Diaz Griffin demanded more than $1 million per month in child support, submitting a detailed budget that included $300,000 for private jet charters, $160,000 for luxury hotel lodging, $60,000 for administrative staff, $8,000 for luxury gifts, $7,200 for fine dining, $6,800 for groceries, and $2,000 a month for custom stationery. For children, Griffin argued the budget reflected his ex-wife's personal preferences rather than the children's needs. The prenuptial agreement, which had paid Diaz Griffin $25 million upon signing and $1 million per year thereafter, was ultimately upheld. $2,000 a month on letterhead. $1 billion home for his mother. Ken Griffin contains multitudes, and most of them are extremely expensive. Number 2. The Julia Koch family. Julia Flesher Koch and her 3 children command a collective fortune of $81.2 billion, making them the second wealthiest dynasty with a direct Palm Beach footprint. The source of that wealth is Koch Industries, the multinational industrial conglomerate spanning oil refining, chemicals, paper, and commodity trading, which Julia's late husband David Koch co-owned alongside his brother Charles. David passed away in 2019, leaving Julia with a 42% ownership stake in one of the largest privately held companies in America. She did not step back from that position. She manages it. Her Palm Beach compound sits on South Ocean Boulevard, a landmark oceanfront estate the Koch family has anchored for decades. They have been part of the island's old money social infrastructure long enough that their philanthropic footprint is essentially structural. Arts institutions, medical facilities, educational endowments. The Koch name appears on plaques across Palm Beach County in the way that genuine generational wealth operates, quietly, permanently, and without needing to make a scene about it. Julia's personal approach is disciplined and deliberate. She has been consolidating her holdings around Florida rather than maintaining a sprawling multi-city portfolio. In February 2025, she sold her duplex at 740 Park Avenue, one of the most prestigious addresses in Manhattan, to Ken Griffin for $45 million. 2 of the 3 wealthiest people on this list, transacting on a New York City apartment, while maintaining compounds within a few miles of each other on the same stretch of South Ocean Boulevard. At this altitude, the same names just keep appearing in each other's deals. $81 billion, a controlling stake in a private industrial empire, and a social presence in Palm Beach that predates most of the hedge fund and tech money by several decades. Julia Koch is not a newcomer to any room she enters. She is usually the reason the room exists. Number 1. Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison was put up for adoption as an infant, raised by a middle-class aunt and uncle in Chicago, dropped out of 2 universities, drove to California with almost nothing, and co-founded Oracle Corporation, which became one of the most dominant enterprise software companies in history. His net worth is $201 to $203 billion. He is the 6th richest person on Earth. He owns 98% of the Hawaiian island of Lanai. He has been married 6 times, most recently in 2023. He holds a pilot's license and has flown military-grade aircraft. He races yachts at the highest competitive level. He collects Van Gogh paintings. He is 80 years old and appears to be speeding up. In Palm Beach County, Ellison operates out of Manalapan, a tiny barrier island town of exactly 400 residents, sitting just south of Palm Beach proper. In June 2022, he purchased the legendary Gemini estate at 2000 South Ocean Boulevard from Netscape co-founder Jim Clark for a record $173 million. The compound covers 15.65 acres running from the Atlantic Ocean to the Intracoastal Waterway. It contains a 33-bedroom, 38-bathroom main house, 1,200 feet of private Atlantic beachfront, 1,300 feet of intracoastal frontage, a PGA quality golf course, a private wildlife sanctuary on Bird Island, and a series of private tunnels running beneath State Road A1A, connecting the ocean and lakesides of the property. The tunnels are real. He built them. Then Ellison looked at the 5-star O Palm Beach Resort and Spa sitting adjacent to his property, a full luxury hotel with public foot traffic and guests and general human activity, and apparently decided that was not acceptable. So he bought it for approximately $277 million. His total investment in the town of Manalapan now exceeds $450 million in a town with 400 people, which has sent surrounding property values into a stratosphere that previously didn't exist. The locals call it the Ellison effect. His son David controls Skydance Media, which acquired a controlling stake in Paramount. His daughter Megan runs Annapurna Pictures, one of the most critically respected independent studios in the industry. In one generation, this family went from Oracle's founding garage to controlling a major Hollywood studio, owning a Hawaiian island, and resetting the real estate market of an entire Florida town. Ellison abstains from alcohol and drugs entirely. He follows a strict physical regimen. He owns a McLaren F1, a Lexus LFA, and an Audi R8. He has at least 4 Van Gogh paintings. He was married 6 times. He bought a resort because it was next door and he didn't want it there. Larry Ellison did not come to Palm Beach to join the community. He came to own the zip code, and then quietly buy the one next to it just in case. And that's a wrap on the richest ruling dynasties of Palm Beach. Which one hit different for you? Drop it in the comments, and subscribe to Global Status for more deep dives into the world that doesn't make the headlines but absolutely runs the show.